Yisbach. It's Saturday night and it's a Shabbos. It's a tradition to study a Sefer Tanna D'Vei Eliyahu, the book, the teachings of the house of Elijah, which is a medrash which is said to be channeled literature from the teachings of Elijah the prophet. So he says here, we read this week Parshas Noach, which is the story of Noah, the flood, and of the Tower of Babel. It says, anybody who's arrogant is removed from the world. This is in chapter 31. It says, V'chein ba'anshei dor mabul, people from the generation of the flood, gasus haruach haisabam, they were arrogant. Uva nakram min ha'olam, and because of their arrogance, they were removed from the world. Shneimar, it says in Job 21:14, V'yarem l'kel suru mimenu das rechech lechafatznu knivdenu umanoil knivka boy. It says they said to God, let's go away from them and know your ways. We didn't want to, meaning we didn't want to know your ways. Who is the Almighty that we should serve him? And what does it help him that we approach him? Mahai oisen. What? So the Medrash asks, what did the people do in the days of Noah? The Medrash says they would just take off their clothes, put them on the ground, they'd walk around in the marketplace without any clothes on. Shneimar, it says in Job 24:10, Aroim hilchu bli levush. So they walked around unclothed, without any clothes. Uma anshin b'olam hazeh. So what was their punishment? Kadosh Baruch Hu hates if oisan al panei ha'mayim k'may zikim. So God,
I'm almost done with this,
sent them on all over the water like zikim. What does it mean, zikim? It says the Shus Yankov was a commentary. It says like a bottle that floats in the water. It's not usually how we translate zikin, but that's how the Shus Yankov understands it. Shenemar kal hu al panei hamayim. It says it's light upon the face of the earth. V'oimer guru lechem mipnei cherev ki chema avonis charev l'man teidun shadun. In Job 19:29 it says, should be afraid of the sword, because those are the sins of the sword that you should know. Shadun, destruction. And the Medrash says, Al tikar shadun, don't read it shadun, el shedin, that there's judgment. Yesh din lamala, there's judgment above. That's what he says about the people of the flood. Migdal, also the people who built the tower after the flood, the days of Nimrod, we say in Hebrew. They want to build a tower. Why? They were arrogant, and through their arrogance, they were removed from the world. How do we know this? Shneimar, Vayehi kol haaretz safa echos, v'mahav nivna lanu ir umigdal v'rosha b'shamayim, v'nasa lanu shem, v'nafu tzal pnei chol haaretz. In Genesis 11:1, it says all the land was one language. And then it goes on to say, and they said, let's get together, build ourselves a city and a tower that the head goes up into heaven, or is in heaven. Nasalanu shame. Let's make us a name. Penafutzal penechala aretz, lest we be spread out over the face of all the earth. Boyure, come look at this. The Medrash says, B'chesed hagadol shasa Kodesh Baruch Hu imahem. Bar marduvoy. By virtue of the very kindness that God did to them, that's wherewith they rebelled against God. Mashal Adam Shu Goyla Medina la Medina. We could compare this, make a comparison like a parable. There's a man who's exiled, he's an expatriate, he's traveling around from one country to another, and he doesn't know, he goes to a country where they speak a different language. If he's in a country where nobody speaks his language and he meets someone else who does speak his language, he feels so good. He says, oh, there's a landsman, this is a guy, he speaks the same language as me. Even as a total stranger, because they talk the same language, there's a connection. So here they were all speaking the same language. They didn't have that problem. They were not foreigners, and yet they used this to rebel against God. Because it says in Genesis 11, and they said one man to his friend, let's go and make bricks, and then let's go build ourselves a city. Keneged Shem Amr Lashon Hava. Kodesh Baruch Hu Amar Gam Kein Lashon Hava Leihem. So it says, they said, let's get together, Hava. That's how they spoke. So then God also says Hava Leihem. He also said, let's get together. He said to the angels, Hava Nerda. So let's get together and go down. So then God came down from the highest heavens to confuse their languages. He spread them out in the four corners of the earth. And it says the Lord came down to see the city and the tower. And the Lord spread them out from there. Al Ken Korah Shma Bavel. That's why it's called Babel, Babel. Kisham Bolal Hashem Sfas Kol Haaretz, because that's where the Lord confused the language of all the earth, and they were babbling. So it goes on with other examples from Scripture, but because we could look at that when we come to another parsha. It's very interesting. Different things are said about Migdal Bavel. There are different stories about Midrashim and so forth about the Tower of Babel, which are very fascinating. One thing that's very popular in especially in YouTube community is the question of ancient technology. Did the people who lived in ancient times have more advanced technology than we have today? And it's not so strange to think of something like that, particularly in antediluvian times before the flood. Why? Because if you think about it, just very simple. An example in America, the 20th century, 1903, Wright brothers had the first mechanical manned flight. 1969, we went to the moon. So it took only 66 years from the first airplane to going to the moon. That's not a long time. 66 years, a very short amount of time for technology to advance so much. Now the time until from when Adam was created until the flood, well over 1,000 years. Just about 1,000 years. So therefore, more than 1,000 years, 1,500 years. So for sure, they had plenty of time to develop all kinds of technology, and then it was wiped out with the flood. So if it was just your family left, that you know how to make a computer, a cell phone, an airplane, a car, none of those things you'd know how to do, right? You probably so it would all get lost. So they start again from zero. However, the Tower of Babel, we're talking in post-flood era. Again, they had time to develop technology that probably was lost at various times. We went through dark ages, but there was technology, and perhaps the different things. And it's very interesting because the Medrash Yalkut Raveni, and there's one of the Achronim, the Rebbe Yonason, Rebbe Yonason Eibeshitz, and Tiferes Yonason, one of the greatest minds in Jewish history, Rebbe Yonason. And they and it seems from these writings that the Tower of Babel was in fact a rocket ship or a rocket launcher or something, and there are different discussions that seem to indicate this, that perhaps they were trying to fly. The Rabbi Yonason said, well, first of all, this Medrash that talks very interesting, that there were three groups. Let's just talk about this. There's a story of Satmarov. He told once he was on a ship going from England to mainland Europe, and he spoke to someone about this. The Medrash, but Satmarov Medrash was a big deal. It was most of D'Vei Eliyahu was talking Medrash. But his approach to Medrash is not to take it literally, but rather necessarily, but rather to understand the message and the teachings we get out of it. Although it could also be literal, could also be not be literal. It's not so important. The important thing's a lesson. Here he brings out a lesson. So he says that there was three groups. There was the groups that wanted to make war with God, and they were punished. They were changed into monkeys and into elephants, or apes and elephants, or simians. There was a group that were the scientists, but they weren't against God, but they thought that the sky fell every 1,500 years or so, and they need to make a pillar to keep the sky from falling. That was how they understood science.
Daddy.
Yeah.
What's mine? But God told you to come in a couple of days.
So those people had their language changed.
Oh.
The third group
What?
wanted to be
And
holy. They wanted to go up to heaven to be with the angels.
Coming in a couple of days.
So because of that, then but still they were spread out, but their language wasn't changed. So Satmarov says that it seems from Medrash that we know from the math that Abraham Avinu and Noach were both alive at the time of the building of the tower. Medrash says that they protested against the building of the tower, even against the religious people who wanted to use the tower to get closer to God and closer to angels and things. They also were not allowed to. So Satmarov says it's like that. You have, like in Israel, he said you had the secular who want to make a war against God. You have the religious Zionists who are like the middle group who thought, God needs our help. He can't do it himself. And then the third group are the Haredim who are non-Zionists but not but still work together with the Medina, that group, they were like, oh, but we're going to just use the Medina and use Zionism as a means to go to Israel and be close to God. And the Satmarov said, but the Avram Avinu and Noach, they were like the Satmar approach. They had nothing to do with it. They stayed totally aloof from this whole thing.
What about it?
Anyway, it's interesting. Also, the Medrash says that the people, I'll just tell a joke also on the side, the people, their language, how did the tower get knocked down? The people got their language changed. One person, he started speaking Yiddish, and he said kick, which means look.
Yeah.
And the other guy is speaking English, and he started kicking, and he kicked down the whole tower. So anyway, the
1 minute, buddy.
The Medrash says it's the wicked people were turned into monkeys and apes, elephants, and other animals. So it's interesting because the scientists, they want to try to claim that human beings share a common ancestor with chimpanzees because they discovered certain retroviruses in the DNA, and they said this proves evolution because here they shared the retroviruses in the DNA. That proves that we come from this common ancestor. So the thing is that the common ancestor doesn't mean that humans came from lower form simians. We could have a common ancestor of Adam, because we say that the people in the Tower of Babel were changed into apes. And so we could assume these apes existed before as well, but
a planet where apes evolved from men.
But basically, that's what happened, is that these men were turned into apes, and that's why
a planet where men turned into apes.
Where the retroviruses will come into the DNA. It's a possibility. Talking about the ancient technologies, I heard an acquaintance of mine, Rabbi Bart Sadok, he's on the show Ancient Aliens. There's a book that was published by Feldheim in the 70s, I don't remember the name of the book. He says that it says Yimsa Bikosham, that they found a Biko, they found a valley. That's where they settled and made this. And the question is, why would they build a tower that's trying to reach heaven in a valley? You would think they'd build on a mountain to be higher up. So the word Bika, this book, I don't remember the name of the book, maybe it was Rabbi Carmel wrote it, it seems like something he would write. I remember Rabbi Carmel, or his son, I don't know. That Bika is related, even though it also means a valley, but it seems counterintuitive that they're building in a valley. So Bika could be related to the word Bokeya, which means something that's unstable. So an unstable element would be a radioactive element. So either nuclear fission, although I've seen people online suggesting that it was hydrogen fusion, but in any event, that it was a nuclear-powered rocket ship that they were planning to go to the moon to escape. But there have actually been discussions that the antediluvian people also went to the moon before the flood. There's something I think is, excuse me, Apollo 20 mission, if anybody knows about this, that the government covered up, but they found a film that was taken where they actually found on the moon a rocket ship, and they found a woman inside there who had been preserved. This film is very commonly found on the internet, and one commentator, he was a Christian, he said that this was a woman from before the flood, which is possible, that they had this technology that was lost, but this could also be from after the flood as well. We really don't know. So certainly there's a possibility, and we can even find in scripture that there was ancient technologies that was far advanced to technologies we have today. I remember Rabbi Chaimov in Queens said even in the Egyptians, in the time of Moses, even had far advanced technologies. He said, I remember this was 20 years ago, he said this, he said that the the machines we have now is what the computers and things is they wouldn't even give to little kids to play with in Egypt. That was they had very high level of technology, and just a lot of it had been lost and so forth. And there's a lot of evidence to this we find in the hieroglyphics and other things. The same thing with the Tower of Babel. I found something online, and there are many other examples of these type of things that all across the world there were these different things. Therefore, it's very possible that that all these things were very high advanced technology, and perhaps the angels even gave it to them, which maybe they could have been ancient aliens, all these type of things. I know Aaron Soloveitchik from Chicago, the brother J.B. Soloveitchik, he said that in last week's Sedra, when it says about the sons of God, the daughters of men, this passage very famous in Genesis, that's talking about aliens. So it's possible also that this could be connected to that. But the point that we bring out of all of these things is that God is in control above all of these things, above all the technology, above all the aliens, above all the angels, above all the demons, above all the people. And so the people were disrespectful to God. They did not have, they were ungrateful to God for the gifts that He had given them, and so God spread them out. He sent the flood, He sent the Dorafloga, He spread out the people, and so forth, until Abraham came along and took the reward that was intended for all these people, which is the Torah, which was supposed to originally be for the whole world, but the world didn't want it, and so the Jewish people were given the opportunity now to have the Torah. But today, anyone could become Jewish and join the Jewish people and have that same gift of the Torah. And so that's what we're going to just maybe discuss next week. If we make a video maybe about that Abraham, he went and he brought people under the wings of God's presence. And that's what we look forward to in the day when the Gemara says that when Mashiach comes, Kulam Gerim Grurim, the whole world is going to come to Torah. And now we have I remember the Shidlovtzer Rebbe, he should be well in Yerushalayim. I was with him here in America. It was Motzei Shabbos. It was in Brooklyn. This must be, I think, when McCain was running. So we're talking about 8 years ago. If I'm not sure, it might have been, yeah, it was 8 years ago, or yeah, that makes sense. Or no, actually, could have been more. Could have been 12 years ago. Yeah, actually, it's Shaykh. It was 12 years ago when it was Bush against Kerry. I don't remember exactly. I think maybe that's when it was. 12 years ago, it would have been. This year is 2016, so that was what 2004. So yeah, it's Shaykh 2004. Probably was sitting in Motzei Shabbos. It was just before the election. He said, "As an Indian to talk on Motzei Shabbos, Saturday night before the elections, to have hashpah." And here we spoke about the whole Indian of Gerim as a nefesh asher asa b'choron, And it must be tremendous schus in the home of Donald Trump that his daughter became a Gioris Tzadekis, an Ehrliche Orthodox convert to Judaism. And that's schus, hopefully, and not only that, but Hillary, Rahman Latzlan, her daughter married a Yid, and she didn't convert, and so she's bringing destruction on Klal Yisrael. So this schus that Donald Trump's daughter became a Gioris, and he has grandchildren who are Jewish, frum, Shomrei Shabbos, going to day schools. It's a big schus. Even with all the problems he has, and he's definitely not perfect, that schus hopefully should lead to we wish well for him and his mishpacha, and for whole America. And definitely Hillary Clinton would be a horrible person for America. To be the president would be a big disaster. And so we should be mashpia in this chus with the elections that are coming this week. Now is the time to pray Motzei Shabbos, that the Republicans should win up and down the ticket, especially here in our congressional district. This is much more important probably to keep this district Republican, particularly considering who's running, John Faso, who's a friend of the Klal Yisrael. He's an Oyev Yisrael. And he appreciates all religions, and for people with no religion, unlike Zephyr Teachout, who's a known anti-Semite, who is supported by George Soros, who's a Nazi collaborator, a capo. It should be a no-brainer. Unfortunately, it's a very close race. So everybody should get out and vote for John Faso for Congress here in this district, and for president, vote against Hillary Clinton. That's the best I could say. But really, I was a supporter of Cruz. I voted for Cruz, and I'm disappointed that he didn't win, because it wouldn't have been such a difficult race if he would have won. But that's a situation, whatever. In any event, let's be strong. Let's whatever happens, we still have to keep our faith and look forward to when Mashiach should come. A good davach, and I'll make another video now about for melaveh malkah, also for the my Sipurei Tzadikim, yard sites of this week. A good davach. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.